Welcome back to Twisted Pine Homestead, ready for a deep dive.
Always.
Today we're tackling a name that's like synonymous with sustainable farming, right?
Yeah, Joel Salatin.
Joel Salatin. But he's more than just a farmer though, right?
Absolutely. He's an author, he's a lecturer.
Inspiring so many conversations about sustainable farming.
Yeah, and really kind of pushing the boundaries of what it can be.
And the cool thing is, for this deep dive, we're pulling all our info straight from his Wikipedia page.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which has all these details about his life, his philosophies, his unique way of approaching agriculture.
I mean, I think what makes Salatin so interesting is he really challenges us to think differently about how we produce food.
Yeah, and how those choices, the ripples they create.
Exactly.
To get where he's coming from, let's rewind all the way back to his childhood. And this is not your typical farm boy story.
No, not at all. I mean, this guy spent part of his childhood on a 1,000-acre farm in Venezuela.
Venezuela.
Yeah. And it gets even wilder.
Okay, lay it on me.
So they weren't just farming down there. They were also involved in like wildcat oil drilling.
Really?
Yeah, and then they jumped into poultry and dairy.
Oh, wow.
And according to Salatin himself, they like quickly dominated the local market.
Wow. Talk about some serious entrepreneurial roots.
For real.
But then things shifted. Big time. Political upheaval in Venezuela forced the family to move back to the U.S. in 1959.
Yeah, huge change.
Landed on a farm in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley.
Beautiful area.
And it was there that Salatin's parents, super influenced by the Bible and writings of J. Rodale, the organic farming pioneer,
Oh yeah, he was a big deal.
they started instilling this deep respect for the land in their son.
That's so pivotal, I think, right? It makes you wonder how those contrasting environments shaped his thinking. Venezuela with its oil industry, free market agriculture, and then the Shenandoah Valley.
Yeah, how did those things all come together? And even as a kid, Salatin's entrepreneurial spirit was burning bright, selling farm products at the local market in high school. But then, he goes off to Bob Jones University, graduates with an English degree.
Not exactly the typical farmer's path.
No, not what you expect for a future farming innovator, right?
Exactly. But I think that speaks to his complex personality. You know, here's a guy who can dissect literature, articulate these complex ideas, and then turn around and work the land with incredible expertise.
It's fascinating. It all comes together, though, at Polyface Farm, his 550 acres spread in Swoop, Virginia.
This is where he really puts his radical ideas into practice.
Yeah, and it's an historic farm too, right? With a farmhouse dating back to 1750.
Oh yeah, full of history.
And he turns it into this living lab for what he calls beyond organic farming.
Beyond organic.
I love that.
Yeah.
But for those of us who might not be super familiar with the term, what does beyond organic even look like?
Okay, picture this. Cows grazing freely on these lush pastures. They're moved to fresh sections regularly, keeping the land healthy.
Okay, I can see it.
Then chickens in these portable coops are brought in right behind them.
Oh, wow.
They eat the fly larvae in the cow dung, and they fertilize the fields with their droppings. It's this amazing cycle, a dance between all these different elements of the farm.
That's incredible. Each element supporting the others.
Yeah. It's so well orchestrated. I mean, no wonder food writer Joe Robinson called Salatin totally innovative. He's breaking the mold.
Yeah, not afraid to ditch conventional wisdom.
He's a true pioneer, always observing, experimenting, refining his methods. But it's all fueled by a very specific philosophy.
Right, because remember, he describes himself as, are you ready for this?
Hit me.
A Christian, libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer.
That's a mouthful.
It's a lot to unpack.
Definitely makes you curious about the man behind the label, right? And when you dig deeper, you find someone who's deeply spiritual, fiercely independent, passionate about the environment, and totally unafraid to challenge the status quo.
Yeah. And all those threads, they even weave their way into his business.
Right, oh, for sure.
He's a huge champion of direct-to-consumer marketing. Sells his meat right to customers within a 4-hour radius of Polyface Farm.
Yeah, cutting out the middleman.
Shortening that distance between farm and fork.
Yeah.
Building community.
Right. It's this radical shift from the huge industrial food system we're all used to.
And of course, that puts him at odds with how things are usually done. Salatin has been very vocal in his criticism of government regulation in agriculture, argues that it stifles ingenuity and favors those big agribusinesses.
And he's never been shy about expressing those opinions.
No. And his writing is just as bold and thought-provoking as his farming methods. With book titles like, "Folks, This Ain't Normal," and "Everything I Want to Do Is Illegal," you know it's going to challenge your assumptions.
Oh, yeah, buckle up.
12 books in total.
Wow, that's impressive.
He clearly has a lot to say. And while his ideas have earned him a lot of praise, motivated so many farmers, conscious eaters.
There's been some controversy too. We can't just ignore that.
Right. Like in 2019, he published that blog post that sparked accusations of racism. He was responding to another farmer who was advocating for a more, collective approach to agriculture.
Yeah, a very different vision.
And in his response, Salatin used language that many found deeply offensive. Specifically that phrase, playing the race card.
Oh, right. That caused a lot of backlash.
Yeah. And he also made a comparison to William Cody's interactions with Native Americans. It's this really jarring moment that kind of cast a shadow over his reputation.
Yeah, it really did. Mother Earth News, a publication that has supported Salatin's work for a long time, they even cut ties with him.
Wow, that's huge.
Sure is a big deal.
And it's a stark reminder that even people we admire, they can make big mistakes.
Right. And that words have real weight, real consequences.
We have to hold our heroes accountable, but also remember that people are complex.
Yeah, capable of both good and bad.
Then during COVID, Salatin made headlines again. He expressed a desire to contract the virus. Drew a lot of criticism for that.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Highlighted that even brilliant minds, they can hold views that are, misinformed or potentially harmful.
Right. It shows how important it is to think critically. Engage thoughtfully with information, even from people we respect.
Absolutely. Now, despite these controversies, Salatin's impact on sustainable agriculture, it's undeniable.
No doubt about it.
He's been featured in Michael Pollan's The Omnivore's Dilemma, in documentaries like Food, Inc., and Fresh. His farm's been written about in Smithsonian Magazine and National Geographic.
Wow. Talk about reaching a wide audience.
And in 2001, he won the Heinz Award for his contributions to the environment.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Solidifying his status as a leader in the field.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from Salatin's unusual upbringing to his groundbreaking farming practices, his controversial statements, his undeniable impact. It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
It really is. A lot to unpack with Salatin. But I think it's important to circle back to that 2019 blog post and all the reactions it got. It really did damage to his image.
Absolutely. Salatin did apologize later on, saying he never wants to offend anyone based on race, religion, culture, gender, creed. But it brought up this bigger conversation, didn't it? About diversity inclusion within sustainable agriculture.
For sure. Salatin's comments, whether he meant them to be harmful or not, revealed a blind spot. And it's a blind spot we often see in spaces where certain voices have always been the dominant ones.
Yeah, it made people face this uncomfortable truth that even communities trying to be progressive, forward-thinking, even they can have those systemic biases.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that creating a truly inclusive space, it takes constant work, self-reflection, education, and a real commitment to amplifying those voices that have been marginalized, pushed to the side.
Yeah, that's so important. Now, stepping back from the controversies for a bit, there's no denying what Salatin has done for sustainable agriculture.
Oh, he's a giant in the field.
His practices at Polyface Farm, they've inspired so many farmers, so many people who are just trying to eat more consciously.
Totally. His work shows what happens when you combine creative thinking with a willingness to challenge what everyone else thinks. He's not afraid to experiment, try new things, push those boundaries.
Yeah, and he's not just about the techniques, is he?
No way! He's also amazing at communicating his vision, making these complex ideas understandable to a wider audience.
He's a great storyteller.
The best. Weaving together those personal stories, philosophical insights, practical knowledge. It's engaging, thought-provoking.
You see that in his writing too, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Books like Salad Bar Beef, Pastured Poultry Profits, they're like required reading for anyone interested in sustainable farming.
He breaks it all down, right?
Yeah, in a way that's clear, concise, inspiring.
And what about his speaking engagements? I've heard he's really captivating in person.
Oh, he is. He's spoken at universities, conferences, farms all over the country, sharing his knowledge, his passion.
Reaching such a diverse audience.
Yeah, he has this amazing ability to connect with people, to make them see the possibility of a more sustainable food system, a more just one.
What I find interesting is that his message, it resonates with people across the political spectrum.
It's true.
He might call himself a libertarian, but his ideas about local food systems, about cutting back on industrial agriculture, taking personal responsibility, those ideas appeal to people with all sorts of political beliefs.
It's pretty powerful.
It shows that common ground, it can exist in the most unexpected places.
Yeah. And real change, it often starts at the grassroots level, with those individuals who are brave enough to think differently, to act boldly.
Like Salatin. He's not just talking about change, he's living it. He's built this working model of what a more sustainable, ethical food system could be.
Exactly. But like we've talked about, it's not a simple story, is it? Black and white.
No, not at all. Salatin's legacy is complicated.
Multifaceted. He's a pioneer, an innovator. He provokes people. And yeah, sometimes he frustrates us, disappoints us.
But at the end of the day, he forces us to really examine our relationship with food.
Yeah. To think about the systems that produce it, to question our own assumptions, to look at things from different angles.
To have those tough conversations about the future of agriculture.
Exactly. And that in itself is incredibly valuable.
It's easy to just go with the flow, accept things as they are. But Salatin reminds us we always have a choice.
We do. And our choices matter. Our individual actions can spark change.
So as we move into the last part of our deep dive, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the takeaways from Salatin's work. What do they mean for you, our listeners?
What are the big lessons, the nuggets of wisdom?
And we're back for the final leg of our deep dive into the world of Joel Salatin.
We've had quite the journey, haven't we?
We have. From Venezuela to Polyface Farm to those controversies, it's been a whirlwind. But I think we've unearthed some really valuable insights. What do you think? What are those big picture takeaways, the ones that go beyond just his farming methods?
You know, one thing that keeps coming back to me is the power of storytelling. Salatin's so good at weaving together these personal stories, his philosophical ideas, and the actual knowledge of farming.
He paints a picture, right?
He does, and it really makes you see food and agriculture in a totally different light.
And that's crucial today, don't you think?
Yeah.
In a world where we're just bombarded with information, it's overwhelming sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Information overload. But Salatin, he cuts through all that noise with his humor, his passion, and his willingness to challenge everything.
He makes it engaging, accessible. He invites us to think outside the box, consider things we might not have before.
And it's not just about farming, is it? It's about thinking critically, asking the right questions, being informed.
Yeah, like taking ownership of your choices, right?
Yeah.
Being part of the change. Speaking of change, another big takeaway for me is resilience. The way Salatin's farm is set up, it's so adaptable.
Yeah. He's not reliant on just one thing, is he? Always experimenting, innovating, building that resilience into the whole system.
Like a safety net. He's not putting all his eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And that's essential, isn't it? With all the challenges we're facing, climate change, economic uncertainty, the world feels unpredictable.
And he's doing all of this with this deep sense of responsibility to land to the future.
He gets it. He understands that we're part of something bigger. Our actions have consequences. We can't just think about the here and now.
It's a long-term view, and it feels like a perspective we're missing a lot these days.
It does, doesn't it? Short-term gains, individual desires, they overshadow the bigger picture.
But Salatin, he brings us back to that. We're all interconnected. Our choices, they matter for the next generation.
Powerful message. So it begs the question, though, doesn't it? Can Salatin's model actually solve the huge problems facing modern agriculture?
That's the big question.
It is. And I think the answer is it's complicated. There are no easy solutions. It's going to take a lot of different approaches.
But even if we can't copy his model exactly, there's still so much to learn from his principles.
Oh, yeah. He's proven that you can farm in a way that's sustainable, humane, in tune with nature.
And he's shown that we can make a difference. We don't have to wait for someone else to fix things.
We can start right now in our own lives, in our own communities.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Joel Salatin's world, what stands out to you the most?
What are you taking away from all this?
For me, it's the reminder that innovation, resilience, they're not just buzzwords. They're things we can actually do. We can build those systems, adapt, thrive, even when things are tough.
And for me, it's the power of storytelling. Connecting with people on that deeper level. Salatin does that so well. He inspires us to take action.
Beautiful. I think that's Salatin's legacy, isn't it? Making us think differently, challenge what we believe, imagine a better future.
He's given us a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive. I hope you found it as thought-provoking as we did.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. Keep digging into Salatin's work. Find ways to apply his ideas to your own life. And let us know what you think. Head over to our website, our social media, share your reactions, your questions, everything.
And hey, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you're feeling extra generous, buy us a coffee.
We appreciate all your support. It helps us keep Twisted Pine Homestead going strong.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Twisted Pine Homestead.